We are moving into the month of March, and we want to focus on wild possibilities. So if you remember correctly, a few weeks ago I talked about having a clean slate and having the ability to start fresh every day. Well, we're going to continue this idea through the month of March. But what I want you to think about is the fact that we have limitless possibilities. We have the ability to create and design whatever we want, whatever we choose in our lives. And so let us take time to look at what we're going to do tomorrow. Let us look at the idea of planning a new day, highly creative, full of joy, full of participation, full of whatever it is you choose, and know that there are no limits. There's nothing that can hold you back. When we get up tomorrow morning, we have let go of the day before. We've let go of all of the past things that have taken place in our lives, and we are choosing something new. And this is where I want us all to look at, is to begin that each day with something vital and vibrant and exciting and filled with energy. So think about it this way. Consider yourself walking out onto a diving board up above a pool of water. And as you step out on this diving board, your heart starts to beat a little faster. And you look around you and you see the water below and you see the sky above, and there's this sense of excitement, anticipation. And then you get to the edge of the board and you jump. And as you go through the air, there's this feeling of exhilaration. And when you hit that water, there's that shock for a minute. And then there's that feeling and that sensation of something exciting, something really vibrant that's surrounding you. And when you surface the water and you move yourself, whether you're swimming or whatever it is you're choosing to do to get to the side of the pool or the edge of the water, you have that sense of gratification and satisfaction. What would happen if we did this every day of our lives? If every night when we went to bed, we let go of everything that transpired that day, and we started to focus on the next day and what we could create. And every morning we woke up with all of those energies, with all of that excitement and anticipation for a new day. We could create better jobs, better relationships, greater, more exciting retirement, more beautiful relationships and connections. There's so much we can do when we start with that kind of energy, and in that energy know that nothing can hold us back. Nothing can limit us. You see, my friends, about 1 year ago, we all went into a new experience of this world. We stepped into a time called social distancing, safer at home. We began to wear masks. We began to distance ourselves from others. We began to protect ourselves from this virus that we know as COVID-19. And we watched from our homes, from our sofas, as the world took place around us. Isn't it time to let go of some of those restraints of what that was about, and not do anything that's not safe, but to shift our thinking and our creativity to create something new, beautiful, and brilliant? I'm here to tell you that there is nothing that can hold you back. And I'm here to tell you that if you follow that inner voice, if you follow that energy within you that's telling you to go for it, you cannot fail. So tap into the idea of wild possibilities. What are you choosing to do with your life each day, every day? And we can all move forward in this. We can all do this. So this evening, when you retire for the evening, let the day go. And tomorrow when you wake up with that knowing that you are ready, you are prepared to dive right in. Please join me in prayer. What I know today is I know that God is present. I know that as I look outside and I see the sky and the trees and I feel the air around me, I know that these are demonstrations of Spirit. That God is here now, in this moment, in all things. And knowing this is such a reassurance for each of us, because we know in this moment, in this very idea of what God is that we are a part of it, that we are connected, we are attached, we are never separated, and we are never alone. And so we allow ourselves to just feel that reassurance, to feel that comfort, to feel that beautiful embrace of the divine in all things. And as we do this, we turn our attention to this time, allowing ourselves to be fully here now, right now, in this moment. How beautiful it is, how blessed we are, how grateful we are for this time, for this opportunity to simply connect. And so I call it good, I call it perfect, and I call it God. And I let it go, I let it be. And so it is. I was a pretty small child the first time I heard a story in a classroom about a cat. And in this particular story, this cat was always getting into trouble. And it was always looking into the dark corners and poking its head into boxes and doing all of these things that in the story it wasn't supposed to be doing. And the underlying moral of the story when we got to the end of the story was that curiosity killed the cat. Now, I can't remember for sure, but I can't imagine that grade school children would have been taught a story about a cat dying in the midst of the story. But you remember the context, I'm sure, and I'm sure many of you have heard that statement, that curiosity kills the cat. What the heck are we teaching ourselves and our children? To have that idea, to have that very statement out there. Well, what I think that has done for many of us, it has taught us to not be so curious. There was a message there that said, don't go looking for things, don't go investigating, don't ask too many questions. In fact, many of us were probably told at some point in our lives that we did ask too many questions, and we were asked to go sit in the corner and be quiet. Dr. Ernest Holmes, our founder, was known to his family and friends as the eternal question mark. He got into trouble in Bible school, in Sunday school classes, because he kept asking more and more questions. He wanted to understand. His desire to understand the ins and outs of what he was being taught overrode his ability to keep quiet. And his mother encouraged him to ask questions. And look where that brought him. That brought him to coming up with a philosophy that has given all of us an opportunity to create our lives in a better way, in a better idea. I think there is something to be said for people who have a healthy level of curiosity. First of all, when you're curious, it removes you from the mundane of life. It allows us to seek something higher, better, bigger, different than maybe what we knew before. And it takes away the habit of complaining. Because when we go down that investigative trek and we're looking for things and we're feeding that curiosity, there's nothing to complain about. There's just that eager desire to learn more and see more. Albert Einstein says this: the important thing is not to stop questioning. Never lose a holy curiosity. Never lose a holy curiosity. This month, the entire month, our theme is open to possibilities. And today, we're looking at living in the question, the high idea. Living in the question. I encourage you to be curious. And one of the things that we can do and that we're taught to do in our philosophy, one of the practices we have, is to move into the act of visioning. to sit in the silence and be quiet and ask what Spirit's highest idea is for us, what Spirit's highest idea is for us in the expression of our lives. Because trust me, we are really good at limiting ourselves. We're really good at thinking that I can only do this much, I can only go this far, I can only be this great. But Spirit's idea for each of us is limitless. When we take this time to think about this, to ask this question, it takes us away from the things that we know to be true today, and it opens us up to our desires, and it also invites something greater within each of us. My question is, are you willing to be surprised about what you may discover about yourself? Everything has been given to us for our learning and growth. We can take time for that spiritual growth and move beyond the idea of limitations. You see, when we are curious, it ignites something within us. We become more energetic. We get to that point where we have this bit of information, then we want a little bit more and a little bit more. It gives us a shift in perspective, a new awareness, if you will. How exciting is this to think that right now, today, in 2021, we can just choose to become more curious. We don't have to solve all of the problems of the world. We don't have to go out there and make everything different, better for everyone else. We can just simply choose to be more curious. Ernest Holmes has this for us. Through spiritual discernment, we see that we have within us a power which is greater than anything we shall ever contact, a power that can overcome every obstacle in our experience. What has happened to you in your being when you took time to research and to be curious? All of the problems of the world kind of fade away, and we get all involved in what this particular task is, this particular path that we're on. I found a story about a tree, what do I want to call it? An experiment that they did with a tree. They took a very small sapling and they weighed it and measured it, and they placed it in a bathtub full of soil. And they weighed the soil before they put it into the bathtub, and they planted the sapling, and over the days and weeks to follow, the sapling was nurtured. It received sunshine, it received water, it received nutrients, etc. Until eventually the sapling became a tree so large it could no longer fit in the bathtub. And so the tree was transplanted, and it was taken out of the bathtub, and it was weighed again. But now the volume and the mass of this tree was so much greater than it had been as a sapling. But what's curious here is that the soil that housed it, that held it in that space and allowed it to grow, weighed exactly the same as it did the day the sapling had been planted. The point here is pretty simple. Nothing has to be given up. Nothing has to be minimized. Nothing has to be extracted for us to grow, for us to learn, and for us to flourish. What a great idea that is. How reassuring that is to know that we can continue down this path, and nobody has to give anything up for us to have what we choose and what we desire. No one has to lose. We all get to flourish. So I encourage you this week to take time for curiosity. The possibilities are limitless, limitless. I found an article that offered the 10 habits of curious people. Now, I'm not going to go through all 10 of those habits, but 2 of them really spoke to me. And the first one is, when you are curious, you are willing to be wrong. Because the idea of learning more and understanding more is greater than the desire to be right. I love that. We can take time to allow ourselves to just be wrong once in a while and just tap into that idea of what have we learned from this and what's coming forth from this. We can do this by cultivating a sense of being open to the ideas of others, or to maybe something you didn't know I don't know about you, but I often have those opportunities where I thought something worked a certain way, or I thought something was happening a certain way, and then someone shared an idea with me, and it was like, huh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was the case. And now we can turn our attention and embrace that and move on. We can live to solve problems instead of living to show everyone how right we are. Eleanor Roosevelt offers this quote: "I think at a child's birth, if a mother could ask a fairy godmother to endow it with the most useful gift, that gift would be curiosity." We need to stop telling our children to stop asking questions. We need to allow these and entertain these. As I said about Ernest Holmes, his mother encouraged him to use his imagination, to continue to ask. And if it wasn't working in the environment that they were in, then they would choose to go to a different place for Bible study. But she always encouraged him to keep seeking. We can build a world of curious people. Another habit that the curious have developed, which I love as well, is you will never be bored. Because you don't have time for boredom. You don't have time for that feeling of there's nothing to do and there's nothing to see and there's nothing to watch on television, because the curiosity ignites something in you and helps us to continue to seek and to look. And when we're naturally curious, we're always looking for something else. I always love going places where there are a group of people, and this hasn't happened in a while, and I understand it, but we'll be back to that again someday. But going into a room where there's a lot of people, and I try to find the one that looks the least like me, or someone that is doing something that is unique to what I know to be common. Because I know in that interaction, I will find and learn something different than anything I ever knew. What would that be like for you? To just take today or tomorrow and delve into satisfying the curiosity within you. Years ago, I took a class at Holmes Institute on research methodology. And it was a class that taught us how to do research. And I had always done a little bit up until then, because I would seek out enough insight for the things that I was teaching and training to know that I could come from a voice of reality, that I kind of had my ducks in a row, that I had the facts straight. But when I went into this class, I found out that there are websites out there where you can find out about research, and then in that research they can tell you to go into other research, and it's just constant and continuing. And what it does is it kind of ignites something within you. It brings us back to life. So if we're feeling somewhat sluggish because of the winter months, or we're being somewhat sluggish because of the containment that we have lived in with COVID-19, or we're feeling sort of limited and we're complaining that we've watched everything there is to watch on television, take some time and tune into that curious muscle within you. Curious people use both sides of their mind. So the idea is that there are two halves of our mind. There is one half of our mind that seeks out a new experience, and the other half of our mind is constantly trying to help us understand what just happened. And the curious person can go back and forth and live in both of those arenas. I can look at what my experience is, I can look at what the understanding is, and then I can seek out a new part of that experience. Whereas some of us just live in that place of constantly trying to understand. And as long as I'm trying to understand, I can't delve into anything new, because I'm still trying to figure out all the stuff that already happened. So a curious individual is going to utilize both sides of the mind. Once you're willing to tap into Source and align yourself with the highest vibration of your life, everything falls into place. As soon as we open our eyes, open our minds, open our hearts, things start to come together. And we start to have a new perspective on life. And what happens to each of us is everything starts to show up for our greatest good, because that's how the universe works. I encourage you this week to ask one more question, to ask a higher question, to seek a new area, a new avenue, to look at something and say, well, maybe I just don't know everything about it. maybe I could know something more. Feed that spirit within you. Allow yourself to flourish, to grow, and to consider the magnitude of possibilities that are right here for each of us. Please join me in prayer. And so as we allow these ideas and these thoughts to percolate and to just touch our hearts and our minds, we do so knowing that even in this, even in all of this, Spirit is still present. We know there is a God. We know there is a power. We know there is a presence, and it permeates all things and all life. And knowing this, we know that it has a gift for each of us. And that gift is discovery, is seeking, is enjoying, is moving beyond the idea of limitation into the world of limitless possibility. And so as we embrace this today and we embrace this week, we do so knowing that all is good and all is well and all is perfect in the divine mind of God. And what I know to be true is that all people everywhere are blessed, regardless of their faith and their religion. When people gather together, whether it is in a synagogue or a church, or whether it is in a Zoom call, or whether it is in an online presence, or simply in the quiet of their home, all are blessed because all are one with God. How beautiful that is. How perfect that feels. And so what I call forth today is I call forth that idea of each of us tapping into the place of curiosity, seeking new ideas, new thoughts, because this is what creates the new world that we seek. This is the perfection of our lives. I know it's good because it is all God. And so I simply turn these words over to the mind of Spirit, where everything lives and everything unfolds and all manifestation comes forth. And I know this is absolutely perfect in the divine mind. And I ground these words by letting them go, letting them be, and by simply stating, and so it is.